back to
Welcome to the 360 Open House Series with Max Wardlaw. Thank you, Max. Third week in a row.
yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is like we were talking about this last time. I could teach this all day. It's like my favorite stuff. My favorite stuff. So,
Perfect. Well, let me just see. Let's just set up what we did last week.
yeah,
Uh, the last 2 weeks, we talked about, what is done before the open house, the marketing we talked about last week,
yep,
the 23 step that the hub implements. Uh, Max is also going to just give us a quick recap of
yeah,
the information he delivered after we talked about the marketing.
yep.
Um, so do you want to just take it from here, Max, and just
Yeah,
pick
I
up?
can do that. Let me share my screen real quick, and then
Perfect.
we'll go back to that. I think everything goes back to like what your week looks like. And that's really where everyone should start. This comes back to preparation is key, which I put that down there. It's actually funny. I was going to say that without reading it, but I thought about that. Um, this goes back to making sure that this is a scheduled and intentional activity, and it has steps that should not be skipped, as opposed to doing this as a last minute activity, which is where most agents live. Most agents live in, oh, it's Friday, I'm going to do an open house this weekend. And you're not setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up for a lot of haphazardness, and that's not where the magic is going to happen. The magic happens after the preparation. So we talked about searching and scheduling and how you're setting yourself up on a search. And that this is so that you can keep tabs of what are the vacant houses in your market. And that was the other piece that we talked about. The best open houses to do are vacant. They're ones that don't have anything in there, any furniture in there that maybe doesn't agree with the potential buyer. It's forcing everybody to look at the actual real estate, which is why they're there. And then it's also forcing them to engage with you, or possibly if you get to the point where you're putting your own branding materials in there, which we're going to talk about that a little bit, but not in a big way yet. We're going to talk about kind of the bare bones setup. So you're going to have a setup, and when the house is vacant, then the setup is the only thing they're looking at besides the actual house, which is what you want. We're going to talk about previewing the house today. So going to the house, what should you be doing with social media at that point? Because video is going to be your best friend when you're doing open houses. And then we're going to talk about the door knocking and door dropping and all of the fun tools that the hub has for you to use for all of these efforts. And then Friday, you kind of get all these pieces and put them together in preparation for your open house day. So we're not even at the open house day yet. We're still in the prep, which I know some people are like, holy crap, when are we going to get there? I promise we'll get there. And when we do get there, it's going to make so much more sense if you understand the prep work that goes into it. So why are we choosing vacant houses? I kind of just went over that, but let's go through this again. Vacant houses. First of all, you're not dealing with homeowners and their schedules. That is a biggie, because when you're prepping the house the right way, when you're doing the setup, you're actually going to the house a couple times through the week. If you're not doing a vacant house, you're going to have to schedule that, and it's going to be a little bit more strict and a little bit more hurdles to jump through, because you're going to have to schedule that with the listing agent. But if you're choosing a vacant house, it's usually a lot more loose. And it's a lot more open to your schedule, and you can kind of coordinate around that instead of trying to coordinate three people's schedules. So that's one thing that's really easy. And one of the things that I would say about vacant houses too is when you're choosing those, the prep work is about an hour before the open house. And then you're going to have follow-up work in terms of getting all your leads and stuff in the hub when the open house is done. So choosing a vacant house is also going to give you some more breathing room so that you can actually get the work and the systems put together before you leave the house. Because if you're like me, if you're like all the other real estate agents out there, the easiest stuff to work on is the stuff that's right in front of our face. So if you're making it part of your activity of the actual open house process, putting your leads into the hub, making sure that they're getting, the notes that are put in there, making sure that the follow-up structures are done. If you're doing that the day of, you're going to have so much more success. and this is coming from experience, I can't tell you how many times when I first started this out, or new agents, they'll do the open house. And when's the best time to follow up with a lead? When's the best time? Or what's the timeline of following up with a lead? We all know that the early bird gets the worm, right? So if you're not doing this prep work the day of, when you meet these people, when you're fresh in their mind, when they know your face, when they're thinking about the house and having that discussion when they're leaving the open house, you're robbing yourself of the highest potential that there is. So make sure vacant houses give you that extra breathing room of time at the beginning and the end to take the setup down. Make sure that you've got all of your logistics set before you start your week again on Monday, the next day.
Well, in your world, it's within 48 hours that your hub follow-up center does the follow-up calls on your open houses. So by Tuesday, unless if you don't want them followed up until later in the week, you might have had a conversation. You may know they have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, whatever. You do that. Great. So after that vacant house is chosen, of course, you talked about it doesn't have to be a vacant house for sure. Yet a lot of agents don't think about the vacant houses the way you think about them. So
and that's just the first one you're going to. I'm telling you, like, especially remember last week we talked about making this part of your listing package. It's what I do. It's a piece, especially as this industry, going back to the favorability rating of the real estate agent. I can't tell you how many people have said, "Oh yeah, my agent talked to him, listed my house, and then I never heard from them again." Well, if you make open house as part of your practice, no client is ever going to say they never heard from you again, because you're physically in the house. There's something that they can see, touch, and feel that you're doing to market their property. So it's setting yourself up to be that expert, that professional. And we talk about that in a lot of areas of the hub, as opposed to, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint, especially to people who are not familiar with the marketing efforts that you're doing. It's really hard to qualify and give them something that they can take away when you're saying, "Oh yeah, I had 500 impressions." Well, what does that mean? What does that translate to? An open house, when you say I had 15 groups through the open house, that is something that they instantly recognize. It's something they can do, get the information. You've got all the feedback. You have things that you can share with them that are going to show them that you're the one that's there working the open house, and you're the best professional in order to get this home sold. So I make it part of my listing package. And with that, you're going to get a lot of people that, maybe still live in their home. So what do we do in that instance? And what we're going to talk about today is that setup and the bare bones of what you need. So you can do these things whether they're vacant or not. But if you're making this a consistent practice, I just encourage you to really focus in on the vacant ones, because it gives you so much more flexibility and room to kind of bring the show, in lack of a better phrase. That's my theater background talking. So thank you.
That's good. And you look at open houses as it's showtime. I love it. Hey, Max, also what you just said is, I know you communicate really well with your sellers, and that is just really makes you stand out. And even if it's just a touch, that email once a week to your seller to let them know this has been happening. This is how many people that have reached out regarding your listing. This is how many showings we had, etc. That is just gold. For sure, for feeling like you are a great communicator and you're working and looking after things. And also what you just said there, letting them know that you had 13 groups through, or however many, too, in your hub, you could just take a screen cap even of your data of your hub, how many leads came in, how many, at what stage they're at. You could even add that to your seller follow-up. Well, and it's right on your dashboard. So it's right there. Yeah.
We're going to talk about the setup. And I'm going to tell you, this is this much of the setup. It's a small portion, but these are the three things that you need. And we've already talked about the signs, but it's really important for us to have this here, because without the number of signs, you're not giving the highest potential guests coming through your open house. The signs you could be the best marketer in the world. And I said this, 9 times out of 10 times, the buyer that doesn't have an agent is coming in from your open house signs. 9 out of 10 times. So that's really, really important to have that many signs available to you. Again, are you putting all 25 out? You should try. You should try. If it's a neighborhood area, and that's why, going back to the last video, look at how we're searching for these houses. One of the things you need to look at is it on or near a main road? You can use your online Google tools or your MLS tools to kind of walk around the neighborhood and plan out where your signs are going to go before you even set foot there. So it's all about maximizing your time. So infographics I'm going to touch on because that's later. This is an extra thing, but the one that you really, really need is what's your budget? And what that is doing, and I'll show you what that is right now. That's actually this right here. So this is your number one conversation piece in your open house, period. One caveat I want to put in here. This is really, really meant for that fast moving market. This is not necessarily something I would put in a luxury listing, because think of the client that's coming in there. They don't, not concerned with their budget, right? So if what we're targeting is that fast moving market in your area, for me, it's 400 to 600,000 is kind of the masses are going to be there, which that's what this is. You're trying to appeal to the masses. A lot of them are going to, especially with the interest rate conversations and all of that that's going on right now, they're going to want to know how much house they can afford. So what's your budget tells you that. And I've got a question on here, and I'm just curious, Sandy, Dave, Kelly, what's different about these numbers? What's something that you notice about these numbers right away? Kind of a glaring thing?
Anything? There's a high interest rate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Sandy. So there's a high interest rate. Why do you think that is?
So people know that they'll qualify and you're not overqualifying them.
Yeah. So two reasons. One, the interest rates that are advertised are always for the highly qualified applicants, right? So you want to pad it a little bit for maybe somebody that doesn't have a stellar credit score, but they can still afford a house. They're not going to get the same interest rate as somebody that has an 840 credit score. That's not how it works. So again, it's appealing a little bit more to the masses, but from a psychological standpoint, anytime somebody is in front of this, and most of the time when they're in front of this, they're actually shocked at how much they're paying in rent and how much house that would buy. But the reason that the interest rate's high is that if they're in front of that and they're having a conversation, you can walk up with them and 100% of the time give them good news and create rapport. So, hey, yeah, these numbers are really amazing. I know you had no idea that you could $3,000 that you're paying in rent right now would buy you a $340,000 house. But actually, this is at a 9% interest rate. We're somewhere closer to 6.75 right now. So your affordability is going to be even much more than that. So you're always coming to them with good news, right?
Nice.
It's about creating the connection in the open house, creating that rapport. And then all of a sudden you're a trusted person. And that leads to the conversation of, have you spoken with a lender yet? Do you guys, what you're pre-approved for? Do you know what your rate might be? It just leads into that conversation a lot more naturally than grilling them on those questions on the front end, because then you're a salesperson.
Yeah, because you're a consultant. You're not a salesperson.
Exactly. If you're leading with the questions, if somebody walks into the house and next week not next week, the week after, the next part of the series, we're going to talk about a lot more of the psychology of this. This is part of the psychology, but that 9% interest rate is a winner because 100% of the time you're coming to them with good news. It's intentionally designed to be over what the market rates are.
Nice.
And you guys, this is a mortgage calculator. Everybody always asks me, where'd you get this information? I went on Google and I did a mortgage calculator based on how much I want to pay per month. And then I just did $1,750, $2,000, $2,250, and I made this in Canva. It's done. It's so very, very easy. Yes, it is the most potent piece that you're going to be able to see. The other part of this conversation that I think is really, really interesting. We've all talked about marry the house, date the rate, and we talked about that mindset. But the other thing that you can talk with your potential customers is especially if they're renting, that rent payment is 100% interest. You're never going to see it again. So talking about objections and how to handle them, you never want to, and this is again a little bit more in the next conversation, but you never want to negate what somebody's saying. You want to yes and. I completely agree with you. And did you think about it this way? The rent that you're paying is actually 100%. So this 9% interest rate, even though this isn't where we are, doesn't that sound much better than 100% that you're paying on rent right now?
Yeah.
And you're having that consultative conversation, right?
Really good.
The other piece on here is right there at the bottom. Did you know the interest rate that you pay on your mortgage can be tax deductible? So again, you've got a caveat that you're not an accountant. However, you cannot deduct your rent payments from your taxes. You can deduct your interest on your primary residence from your taxes. So what are the savings that are going to be on that end? And this is through this is a very simple illustration of that. But that's yet another conversation in the consultative realm where you're coming to them with ideas that are different and outside of what the average agent is going to speak with them about. And that's all on one piece of paper.
Great.
So
I also see opportunity to have a lender partner and just have some co-branding there too. And then also have them be investing in some of your business expenses, maybe some lead gen, online lead ad spend in your 360 marketing that your hub's doing for you. And that's just up on the wall. Might as well have a partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can even be another poster. I actually have another one that says, financing your home, ask us for our preferred list of of lender partners.
Right.
So you can do that. Or if you have somebody that's going to invest in that open house in your business directly, have an info sheet that's right above this one that gives all the information about them and co-brand and help build their business while you're building yours.
That's it.
It's really, really awesome. So going back to this, maybe if this will do it, that's not what I want. That's what I want. Active and sold listings. You guys, this is huge. This is the other piece that is huge, huge, huge. And again, going back to why we pick a vacant house, it's blank. So you can create a big display of what this is. If you're doing a non-vacant house, you can actually do this in a notebook. And I'm trying to move you guys around so I'm not like looking to the side all the time. But if you're doing a house that's either staged or it's owner occupied, you don't want to put a whole bunch of stuff up on the walls to take away from the aesthetic of the house. So you can actually have this in binders on the kitchen counter and point people to it where they can browse. But 10 active listings and 10 recently sold listings, and you want to put them on the main wall. This is what that looks like.
I've never seen anybody do this.
Nobody does it unless
you called it an infographic. I'm like, what is he talking about when you first told me? Yeah.
This is it. And you're seeing some of the infographics right here. And I use a combination. Again, we're going to talk about this on the next class, but I use a combination of tripods with posters, stuff directly on the wall, stuff in frames. It's kind of like when you're communicating with somebody, you want to have it displayed in different ways because somebody's going to resonate with different pieces. So you want something for everybody. But this is the main area of the listing. This is the wow space. This is usually the living room, the great room, something like that. And notice how much can you afford or what's your budget is right in the middle of all this action. And then this is doing a couple different things. So your recently sold ones, those are your comps. Those are what you're doing to help justify the listing agent's price, right? You're not an appraiser. So do they have to be an exact science? No. You get to cherry pick which ones justify the price best, even if they're not a direct comp. You see what I'm saying? You're not an appraiser at this point. You're not looking for an exact comp. You're looking for something that's lightly similar that you can display to give the guest or the customer or the client the information they need to make a good decision. So this is providing information. And that's actually one of the things that I tell people, you guys, is, in part of your vernacular, I'm not here to tell you what you should sell your home or what you should buy this for. I'm here to give you the information you need to make the best decision for you, because at the end of the day, this is your decision. Does that sound like a salesperson or a consultant?
Consultant.
Right? So this is huge. The other piece of this is the active listings that are in the area. How many of you have hosted an open house where somebody walks into the house and it's not the right house for them at all? It's just not going to work. Maybe the price is too high. Maybe it's too small. So many different things could be happening. Well, all of these active homes that are on the market are within a mile and a half of that house. So then when they're looking at this list, they're going to ask you, and I get this asked all the time, are these all your listings? It's like, no, these are the ones that are available in the area. I wanted you to have some options. Does this, and then you can have a conversation about what they like or dislike about the house that you're sitting. And then you can invite them. Well, would you like to go see one of these houses? They're right around the corner. Boom. You're showing property immediately to somebody that you just met 5 minutes ago that came into your open house. What do you think that does for the rapport?
Max, this is just so easy, simple, logical, common sense. Have you guys, anybody on this call, have you guys ever seen someone leveraging the real estate of the walls to actually get the visuals up here to engage, to encourage engagement?
Nope.
No.
Dave, and you've been around a long time, dude.
Right?
Thanks, Kelly.
As long as me.
So funny.
In fact,
what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. Who is the person that walks into your home afraid of? What are they afraid of?
Getting sold.
Sell me.
They're afraid of getting sold. Who's going to sell them?
Nobody in this house.
Well,
Me.
in their mind, who's going to sell them? You, the agent.
Yeah.
So what this is doing is it's giving them the information without you having to be the first vehicle until they're comfortable with you.
Yeah.
It's building your credibility and your professionalism without you ever having to open your mouth and engage in conversation. So then when they're getting through the process and by the time they're comfortable with you, then you can figure out the best point to start speaking and do the magic. And they're already so much further along in the process because you're giving them the information that they need.
Yeah.
Or you're even better yet, you're showing them another home that is actually more realistic for what they're looking for. Those active ones, they can be all over the board. If you've got a house that's 2 doors down that's for sale, that's $2 million, and you're sitting in a $700,000 house, that doesn't mean you don't put it on the active. You could show a $2 million house that day if that's what somebody actually is. And it can go the other way too. So you want a wide range of the houses that are available in the area. The other thing too, that, if it gets there, especially when we were at low inventory markets, what happens if in 1 or 2 miles from there, this was the only listing available? All of a sudden you're creating exclusivity and an urgency because you can have the conversation. Yeah, these are actually, I had to go out like 3 or 4 miles to even find other houses. This is a super popular neighborhood, right?
Nice.
So it is like, again, this is must. And if you're doing a house that has artwork, you don't, obviously this would take away from the decor and the personality. And this honestly might be something that your seller who's living in the house might not want to see. They don't want you to move their stuff. They want to set the house. That's why vacant houses are great. If you have one that is in the perfect area on or near a busy road and checks a lot of the other boxes, but has furniture in it, just put these in a binder and put them on the kitchen counter or on the dining table or somewhere that is observable. And then the extra step that you have to do is just make sure you tell people that they're there and available to them.
Yet, the magic, I think the magic is the fact that they're not in a book.
No,
I like your easels.
That's the other piece.
Yeah.
And I don't have a picture of those, but if you want to get next level, I actually, and the wall is really good, but next level is I have a 48 by 36 printed corrugated plastic that goes on an easel that has space for the 10 listings and the 10 sold right there. So
I'd be doing that.
I am. This is just the easiest way to get started. Those cost, you got to get them made at a local sign shop, but it cuts your time down so much because you can actually do that as part of your prep on Friday as opposed to the hour before when you're setting the house up.
Yeah, or your flex team partner would be doing. How much is that corrugate? And can you have a picture for us next week of what that looks like?
Yeah, I can. I'll bring them next week.
Okay, very good.
Not next week, the week after. I'll bring them for the next section.
And give us a picture. Hey, Sandy, did you have a question? Because I saw you unmuted and we were just so excited. Yap, yap, yap.
I do. What do you use to put them on the wall that doesn't damage the wall?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
That was next. So wall safe Scotch tape or painter's tape. So Scotch actually has a wall safe type that will work perfectly for the paper. Painter's tape, I actually have these printed and laminated so that I can use them time and time again. I learned that the hard way the first day I did an open house during a rainy day.
Oh.
Then you're taking everything out of the house and all of your stuff gets ruined. So I had them printed and laminated so that I can take them from house to house very, very easily. Painter's tape is going to hold those up. You still have to be a little careful when you're taking it off the wall, but it's if obviously don't use duct tape, don't use masking tape.
And those little blue sticky gluey thing or those blue gummy. No,
I've used those before. Be careful. You gotta use the right brand because some of those are too gummy. And especially if you're doing like a fix and flip property and that paint hasn't cured quite as much as some of the other ones. I've seen those take some paint and then you're scrambling. I painted a couple walls before. So wall safe tape and painter's tape has been the easiest, safest pieces to use.
Good point. That was my burning question as soon as I saw
that's exactly it. So, but again, if you have those big posters on the corrugated plastic that you set up, no harm, no foul. You just set those up on either side, like you see right there, and still put the stuff on the walls in the middle, or have a third one like this in the corner in the middle with all the information that you need. Easels, picture frames, all of those, and then you set those up in other places. This is just the bare bones, you guys. This is just the main area of the house.
Okay, and you have more. Yet you're just going to deliver the basic open house, which this is the base, and then we're going to do a bonus section after for adding on even more. The other infographics.
There's no rules. That's the best part. You're in control of what information you want to share. It's kind of like the purpose-driven campaign in the hub. Mm-hmm. What do I want to share with my people? Well, one of the exercises that we'll do is what are your biggest objections in the market right now? And we'll do that when we do the bonus section. Okay. But that's how these are created. What's the information people need for today's market?
Right.
And then you create infographics and visuals that go up all over the main areas of the house so that people have something to engage with as they're walking through.
Well,
and it's edifying you as a professional without you ever having to open your mouth.
Yeah.
And Kelly, take it real quick because I got to plug my computer in. It's about to die.
Sure. And
I'll be right back.
Yeah. I was having flashbacks to my first life in the fashion industry with clothing stores and wedding shops and retail. Merchandising in a retail store is telling a story from the front window display, which is why I've always looked at open houses differently. And from the minute the person walks in the store, they're creating the space. It's so parallel to me, making them feel comfortable. Don't ever walk up to them and ask them if they're looking for something. So same thing in real estate. We would never go and talk about the real estate first. We want to give them space, let them relax. And the journey that we would take them through the store purposely with our merchandising, how we would drip certain racks and certain displays, leading, enticing them to the most expensive fashion, high fashion. Dave, we even have a strategy for the wives on how they could even pay in installments. We'd hold some of the clothes in the store so they didn't all go home, so the husband didn't get mad. I mean, we had strategies.
Yeah. And that's exactly what this did.
No
You
matter
guys,
what the business.
this is born out of theater.
Yeah.
What this is born out of. This is there. A play has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Your open house has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there is I hate to use the word script because
Yeah.
it's misused in our industry,
Talk
but
track.
there is a process and a flow that happens every single time at your open house. And when you master that, it doesn't matter who walks in. You're in control. They're in your domain. They're on your stage. And you get to be the star of the show. And one of the things that you said that I'm going to jump back in, and I've talked about this, one of the phrases that has to go away from your vernacular when somebody walks in the door, what do most agents say? I'll bet one of you is going to say it. What do most agents say when you walk in the door at an open house?
Are you working with an agent?
Not even that yet. What brings you in today? I can't think of a stupider question to ask, and I hate to say it that way, but I can't think of a dumber question to ask at an open house.
Yes.
You set it all up. It's obvious that there's an open house. There's a sign in the yard that says it's an open house, and then you ask, what brings you in today? No, you know why they're there. Get that out. You don't need it. And we'll talk about that in the mindset and some of the vernacular, because there's also some buzzwords that we're going to reframe for you guys and get rid of, because it's all of a sudden gonna shield them and put the guards back up. And this whole process is made to, and a lot of this came from Tina when we were talking about that. It's about getting the walls down so you can get the root of what they need from you and how you can help them. That's what this is. So that's the biggie. Then the 25 signs we talked about. They're what's going to bring the people in, and we can go back to that slide if we need to, but you can also look at the last class, and it's going to give you all the information you need to know in terms of why we're doing 25 signs. So go to the part 2 of the CEO Masterclass for this. I want to see what's right after this. Aha. This is also part of your setup, you guys. This is number one, the most transformative piece of the open house process. If you want to, everybody has, what's the first thing that everybody's going to expect from you at an open house?
Sign-in sheet.
Sign-in sheet. I never have sign-in sheet, ever. Never once. Notice I don't even say, please sign in on this. Never once. Because it's what everybody else does, and they're wise to the game, guys. So you've got to show up. Again, the theme of what we're doing is how to show up differently. So there's a couple things that happen with this survey. So this is something that you're going to give to the guests that come in, and we're going to talk about the psychology of this in the actual process, but it's something that when they come in, you're going to tell them, I'm doing things a little differently. Would you mind giving me your opinion as you walk around and bring this back to me when you're done? So I've done a couple things here. Just in that, I've given them something to engage with and do. I've given them a task. So all of a sudden they're showing up in the open house a little bit differently because there's something they need to do. They're not just browsing. They have a task. They have a mission now that I've given them, right? The other piece of that is, how many of you don't like giving your opinion? Nobody. Everybody loves to give their opinion. So you're directly asking, you're taking the elephant out of the room and you're directly asking for their opinion through a survey. Hey, just fill this out and let me know how we're doing. And I always reframe it that way. I make it about, how am I doing? I want to know. I'm always keeping track of, because you're going to get nosy neighbors. So that conversation is, I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and make sure that there's nothing that we need to correct during the process. So you get a nosy neighbor that starts hearing that. Who do you think they're going to want to call? And this is even before they see the whole setup. Who do you think they're going to start to plant the seeds of who they want to call when they go to sell their home? It's you, right? So it's planting the seed. And that's something that's very short at the beginning. And we're going to talk about, we'll revisit this, but I'll just let you guys know right now, when you welcome somebody into the house, it is 30 seconds or less. And then you got to get out of them and let them do their thing. So literally the objective of what you're doing is telling them how you're doing it differently, saying, I love your opinion. And when I do it, I just reference like this, just the top section. I do not reference the bottom section. I reference physically the top section. Hey, if you wouldn't mind giving me your opinion as you're walking around and bring this back to me when you're done, that would be so awesome. Thank you so much.
And do you put them on clipboards and give it that has a pan?
So this is actually a half sheet, and I bought half clipboards because who's going to run away with a half clipboard?
Wow.
I didn't even know they existed, but you can buy them on Amazon and they're super cheap. You can even buy them in Office Depot if you need them right away. But a half clipboard, it's small, and I'll bring you an example of that to physically show. But this is rating, and this comes from Tina. But this is rating the neighborhood, the curb appeal, the floor plan, the condition, and price. It's very basic stuff, but it's the fundamental elements that you need to know that you're on track for the listing. Couple things that are on here. And this doesn't matter whether you're the listing agent or not, because this is also information that you're going to share back to the listing agent to firm up that relationship and get repeat business. When they have an open house, they're going to call you. And we'll talk about that later. That's in the follow-up section. But these are very, very easy things for people to rate and understand. Excellent is a 5. Fair is a 1. Notice it's excellent, average, fair. Poor is not on there. Bad is not on there. Psychology, guys, right? So it's excellent, average, or it's okay. That's what we're asking for. They have a place that they can leave specific comments. This is gold. This is gold. This is also something, because then you get to know if it's on a busy street, you're going to get people that put in their busy street. Well, is that something that's actionable that you can do with your seller? Or is that something that it's a part of the house, so you can't really change it, right? But you're also going to get some actionable items on there that you can go back to the seller and say, hey guys, I got some live feedback that the oak tree in the backyard is looking a little diseased, and it might be something that we want to get fixed because multiple people said that they noticed it and it was a deterrent from the house. So it's also giving you actionable items as the listing agent, or giving the listing agent, your partner, actionable items that they can go back to the seller and fix and improve to improve the chances of selling that home.
Yes, and you just said listing agent. So that's when you're doing taking borrowed listings from other agents.
And I do it all the time.
What I was just thinking, if you called me and said, hey, I'd love to do your open house for you and help you out, and then you get into your talk track, and I say, oh my gosh, I'm going to look better to my seller if you come in and do all this. So absolutely.
And I have a script and a talk track for that. And we can talk about that. That actually should be something we need to talk about. I'll put that in my notes, because that is so important. And I love how you framed that. Notice she didn't say, hey, I'd like to do an open house this weekend for you. I'd like to do an open house this weekend, period.
Right.
I was wondering if you would allow me to do an open house this weekend. How does that feel for you guys?
Not good.
Feels like you're looking for a handout, right? So what if you reframed this to, hey, I was looking at your listing. Your listing came across my desk at 123 Main Street, and it looks like an awesome house. I was wondering if you would be open to me helping drive some traffic for you. I'm a master at open houses. This is how I do most of my business. And I really think this is a great candidate. I'm going to market you to all the neighbors. I'm going to put you up on a pedestal. I'm going to make sure everyone knows it's your listing. But most importantly, I'm going to, drive some crazy traffic and get some accurate feedback so that you have something to present to your seller with the results of the open house. What do you think? Is Saturday and Sunday between 11 and 3 good for you?
I would be, that is so impressive. That talk track is the best.
Yeah. And honestly, that's where you're going to get the repeat. So you do it once, you show them how you work, prove the concept. And then part of the follow-up is, hey, I'm doing this all the time, or I have a flex team or an organization. This is all we specialize in. So anytime you need this, I even have partners that make this part of their listing package and use me as an open house because they would rather not do it. That you are more than welcome to do that as well. Anything that you have coming up, please give us a call. We do book out early. We do book out quickly. So as much lead time as you can give us, please let us know. And we would be more than happy to add this as part of your listing package for you and be a partner.
Whoa, Dave, Sandy, if he called you and laid that talk track out, what would you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because remember, you guys, most of the industry, most of the other agents that you're dealing with would rather poke their eyes out than do these open houses. And it is such a mistake because it is where the gold lies. It's where the right now gold lies. It's where the forever gold lies. It's where the database building lies that's going to feed you for the rest of your life. And most importantly, it is a tap that it is a faucet that you can turn on when you need it and turn off when you're too busy.
Right.
You're in control.
I got to back up. I got to back us up a little minute because I don't think he realizes, guys, how he laid that talk track down on what he would say to that listing agent. I don't think he realizes how good that is because he's so natural and the way he says it, and he's a master. He has practiced this.
I've been doing it for five going on 5 years doing this. What I'm showing you now.
Yeah, that most agents, Max, they will text a listing agent and ask if they can borrow their listing, right? So that listing agent just feels like you're just using my listing to get yourself some leads. So that's how, and the industry is used to doing borrowed listings, and the agents are used to being approached that way. So they're either texting and not even calling, or they're calling with that, just saying it in the wrong way, and they're heard in the wrong way. And then the listing agent usually goes click. Like if somebody called me and said, "Oh, can I do an open house on your listing?" and just laid it out like normal, I would say, absolutely no. Thanks for calling. I'd be nice about it. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, there's no way.
And you're going to get those people anyway. Even if you do the talk track that we just said, you're going to get some people that are like wired to go, no, they're honestly, you ready for this? The listing agent that you're calling to do the open house is your first open house guest.
Right.
They're the first person that is going to give you that no, or has the potential to give you that no. So you got to master that first. The other piece that you put in there at the end of it, once they say yes, is awesome. What's your email? I'm going to send you an overview of my entire process so that you understand what's going to happen this weekend. And then I'll be in touch with a report of the activity from the open house so you can present that to your sellers. How does that sound?
You're hired, Max, for every single listing I ever get for the rest of my life. That's what I would truly say that to you.
And most people don't want to do it. So that's how you do it. We'll revisit that when we get back into the psychology, but that is, we're talking about setup today. That's how you set this up. And this is what happens on Monday and or Tuesday when you're finding the right house, which we talked about in the previous classes. So moving on to going back to the survey, because we're not quite done yet. And I'm watching time too. So Kelly, watch for me, because we got one more thing that we're going to have to talk about after this. And I think we're full for the day, but, this next question that's on here. So they're going to give you their opinion. They're going to give you some specific comments. If you were selling your home, would you want it marketed this way? Who do you think that's catering to?
Sellers.
Nosy neighbors, sellers, AKA nosy neighbors, because they're going to come over. And you want to know what my favorite part about it is? You're going to always have the listing agent, or you're going to have the seller if you have the opportunity, if it's your seller, or if you have the opportunity to meet the seller or the other agent, they're going to complain about the nosy neighbors. Oh my God, we're just going to get a bunch of the neighbors that are curious. And you know what I do? I flip the script on them. I say, you know what? I actually love nosy neighbors. I love it when they come, because they actually know what's going on in the neighborhood. And I have a very conspicuous conversation with them for all the other guests in the open house to hear, where I'm asking them what their favorite parts of the neighborhood are, why they made the decision to move here, how long have they been here, what's your favorite part about living in the neighborhood. I have that conversation with them in the house so that all the people that aren't neighbors can hear it.
Really good.
Right? So huge. And then when they do the survey, and I'm probably going to know they're a nosy neighbor, or maybe they're trying to be sneaky and I don't know, right? But if you were selling your home, would you want it marketed this way? Anybody that says yes, that's a green light.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow up with that person. That's an indicator for me that, they've thought at some point about selling their home, even if it was just right this second. So again, it's a potential, right? And that's what we're looking for. If somebody says no, do I want to follow up with that person? No. Because again, the hub will, but do I want to do it? No, I'm going to give it to them until that person may be ready, and maybe they're never ready. But the other part about open houses that I love is that the people come in and the people go, and you get to choose which ones resonate with you, and you get to let the ones that don't resonate with you walk out the door and not waste your time, because you know somebody else that is going to value you, understand you, want your services. They're going to come into that door. It's a little different than cold calling. And I'm sorry for all your cold callers out there. You're going, how many people can I reach? And if somebody's not there, then it's always a downward pressure. It's a depressant for me. That's why I don't do it. But for open houses, if somebody walks out the door and I've already had that conversation, I've seen them in the flesh and I'm like, woo, we are not a good fit. No harm, no foul. I've already set up the open house. It's not taking anything else away from my time.
Well,
right?
And you know what my perspective is. Every single person that walks through that has some kind of connection, even if you're not feeling the vibe with them right now. And again, if it's me, I got my walls up. I so don't want to be sold to anybody, especially being in retail for 20 years. I'm like, get me away from us. So I am not a nice, warm, I'm just totally standoffish if I walked into an open house, Max.
Well, so, you're also a high D, and we're going to talk about that later.
Right. Yet when I walk out, and if I got a call, and I did this, and I got a call, follow-up call in a couple of days from you, a warm sale, non-salesy, just saying, hey, Max said you would walk through the open house, and you lived in the neighborhood. Maybe I just said, I'm just walking my dog. I'm not looking for anything, even though I am. That's what I would tell you. We always say often say we're with another agent, or we're not looking to do anything because we're protecting ourselves. Yet when you get that follow-up call, now I go, whoa, that's different. This guy seems like a professional and organized. That's where so often in the hub, we uncover a totally different story, the real story. And then we go, boom, back to you. Now you're on that listing presentation. Yet your energy and time, you don't even have to think about it. You're right. You stay focused on the people that are opening up and giving you energy, and then let that go over onto the production line and see where it goes. And not only that, maybe I'm not ever looking to move. Yet we've had this happen too, where I'm so impressed that you actually were organized enough to have a follow-up. And I know that the neighbor down the street is looking to sell. This happened 2 weeks ago.
This is that 55 plus community all day long that I've been doing. Oh yeah. Big time.
And so it turns into a referral from that person, but they're just starting to get relaxed because they're getting comfortable now, and they keep seeing your name, and
you have the opportunity through open houses to create raving fans. Tell me what other lead generation strategy gives you that isn't actually doing the transaction.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to create raving fans from people that aren't necessarily, they don't even have to work with you to become your fan, because they're coming in and they're experiencing what you're providing. And that's why this is different. It's an experience.
Okay, 100%. So what do we do next?
So name, email, phone number, address, agent name, and brokerage. I already told you I don't reference that. But notice it's at the bottom of the page, right? Human beings have a compulsion to not leave anything blank unless they are intentionally leaving it blank. And that that means you have to do a little bit more work at the end, which we're going to talk about that. But most people will just autopilot start filling that out. Yeah. And they'll probably give you enough information, even if they don't fill it out completely. They're going to give you enough information where you can find their contact information and update the contact. And guess what? They're never going to know when the hub calls that they didn't give you their phone number. They will never know that. Nobody remembers that, right? So even if you find the contact information later, all you need is their name, right? The biggest thing that I look at is this last piece, agent name and brokerage. So when somebody goes through the whole system and they come back to me because I've given them a leash, which is the survey, because they have to bring that back to me when we're done, right? So what this also means is with the whole setup and everything, people tend to stay an average of 15 to 20 minutes longer in my open house than any other open house. I don't get anybody that walks in, does a 3-minute sweep and walks out. Hardly anybody, because it's an experience, it's engagement, and it's all done without me really opening my mouth. I'm just facilitating it at this point, right? I'm the MC. So agent name and brokerage, they come back. And that says, that's blank. Green light. I need to start having a conversation with you. So in that conversation goes something like this. What do most agents, you said it the first thing, Kelly, when I asked, what do most agents ask? This is another key phrase that you need to get out of your vernacular. And it is, are you working with an agent? Right? How about you flip the script a little bit? How are you finding open houses? Or how are you guys actively looking? Or are you just browsing? Where are you at in the process? Tell me about it. Oh, we're just getting our feet wet. Awesome. Well, how are you finding properties? Are you going around to open houses, or do you have somebody you like and trust that's sending you properties as soon as they're available? Did I say the word agent? Do you have somebody you like and trust? Right? So 2 things are going to happen. One, they're going to go, oh yes, I definitely, Marianne is my girl. We've worked with her in the past, whatever. Okay. So then they're working with somebody. Or they're also going to have this face where you see them start thinking about it. And that's giving you an indicator that, they don't have someone they like and trust. I can be the person they like and trust. Right? So you're moving into that situation because you're creating trust and rapport, and you're giving them information, and you're showing up differently. So you're already 10 steps ahead of the game by this point, right? Way more so than you would be if you were on the phone, because they're in front of you. They see your face, they hear your voice, they experience your presence. It's all right there. So that's if it's blank. That also goes if, somebody just puts Jim. Who's Jim? If somebody puts Jim Clark, Coldwell Banker Realty, then they're working with that person, and you can just confirm that I see you have an agent, and we don't want to step on each other's toes. That's so awesome. As long as you have somebody you like and trust sending you properties, that's all that matters.
Well, I wouldn't say I like and trust them, but I do have this person sending.
Really? Oh, how'd you meet them?
I didn't really. I was on some website. I was drinking wine one night, and next thing you know, some guy's calling me.
You know what? And that's so funny. You are not the first person that's told me that. Zillow and Realtor.com, they have these really awesome buttons that say, I want a showing request, and they're not actually giving you to the agent. They're giving you to some other agent. If you're open to it, you're more than welcome to work with whoever you choose. That's your right. But if you're open to it, I would love to figure out a way that we can work together. I think, this is what I do. You see what I do. I'm not a cold caller. I'm an in-person person. I'm a relationship person. I'd love an opportunity to work with you and help you out.
Whoa.
Right?
Wow. I'm an in-person. What did you just say? I'm an in-person relationship.
I said I'm not a cold caller spammer. I've got a team that, behind me. I've got tons of resources, but I like to meet people because this is a really, really, for most people, this is the biggest purchase and a really big deal that they're going to make in their lives. And I'm really reverent to that. And I want to make sure I show up for people, which is why I love doing open houses, because I get to actually meet awesome people like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've never met the guy, so I
right?
guess, yeah,
I mean, if as long as you haven't signed an agreement with them, which is something that, is becoming a requirement in the industry, as long as you haven't signed an agreement with them, you are more than welcome to choose whoever you would like to work with.
Okay, let's go. I want to go see this house and this house on the wall, all these houses. I want to actually go see 25 houses this afternoon.
Right. And actually,
that's a whole other conversation on a buyer consult.
And you brought the perfect segue into this. So you get to that point when they're talking and you go, well, do you have 2 minutes? If you don't have anybody that you like and trust sending you properties, I would be happy to set you up on a search. So at least you're not running around looking at open houses and behind the 8 ball. Then anytime a listing agent says go, this is a timing game. We want to make sure that we're the first eyes on the property. That's when the best opportunities happen and we can make something happen for you. Do you have a couple minutes just to have a discussion about what you're looking for?
Sure.
Boom. And then you bring them over to your table and chairs that you brought to your vacant home, which is now your office for the day, and you sit them down at the table and you go through all this is it's all the information that you or your hub needs to set up a buyer search for them. Right. And then because you have the hub, you add that lead in and you go, please set up a search with 3 beds, 2 baths, minimum of 1,400 square feet, nothing built before 1985. They definitely want a pool. They definitely want, and you're typing your notes in there, hit send, and they're doing a buyer search. Done.
Yeah.
And it's fast. So the most important thing about these 2 things as well is that they're on paper, or at the very least, you're writing down these things with a pen and paper. Because there's 2 things that are true, and I don't know if this will show. What does this feel like to you? If somebody's writing with a clipboard like this, what does this feel like to you?
You're listening.
They're cut off from you.
Yeah. To me, it feels like a therapy session. Right?
Yeah.
I'm taking private notes about what you're saying. So why you bring them back to the table is you set the paper that you're using with this piece and you put that flat on the table so that it is visible to everybody and you have a collaborative conversation and they're watching you take notes. They're watching what you write. They're watching how much you're paying attention to them. You're creating relationship through pen and paper. You cannot have that relationship if you're typing notes into your computer. You cannot have that relationship if you're typing notes into your phone. It is a disconnector. If you are having a secret from them, it is a disconnector. You want open and transparent communication. And pen and paper, yeah, and that. But I do it with an iPad and a pencil that does it. So I'm physically writing. They see my handwriting. They're watching what I'm doing, and I have it flat on the paper. The pen and paper or pen and iPad, if you still want the technology, that's the only way because it is a relationship builder. Everything else is going to disconnect you from them.
Wow. I was just thinking, man, you millennial, you are good, Mr. Max Millennial, because you are using paper like Dave and I.
Yeah.
And then he pulls out, but I've got the technology, which is very good, Max.
So in the other part, so what I've done is I use a program called Good Notes, and there's a lot of programs that are out there, and I have 15 notebooks in there. So instead of having 15 notebooks all scattered around, I have 15 notebooks in this one program. And one of them is this template. And I just add a blank sheet to it every time I get somebody at this conversation. And they're all in one place. I have the template. I have this sheet from somebody I met 2 years ago. So what do you think happens when the hub calls me and the notes may or may not be in there? And I'm like, that name, Rainey's Nesbitt, that the hub actually connected me with 3 weeks ago. And I already went on a listing appointment. And I got to go back to when I met her at the open house and talk about what we talked about 3 years ago because I had it in my notebook.
Whoa.
And I did keep the notes in the hub.
Wow. Well, I mean, first of all, that's amazing. I didn't know you had also had the tech. I know you had stacks of paper that you got into the hub too.
Yeah.
So the hub had the history.
What was the surveys? Yeah.
The surveys, and the hub had the history from 3 years ago and resurrected it, still connected. Oh, that was the one.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did you say this again? Good Notes?
Yeah. Good Notes is the piece
Thank
that
you.
I use. And the other thing too, and I did this when I had the team, the official team, but this will work with your Flex partners as well. If they also have an iPad as part of their setup and Good Notes, you can share the note between everybody. Okay. So when they're taking these notes, you also can have visibility into it. So if there's anything that they need or any questions or anything, down the road, when your hub is following up and getting this together for them, you have a record of it.
That's brilliant. Okay. Wow, Max. You brought it home again, brother. It's 4 minutes after the hour. Bravo.
Let's do it.
Was there anything else to wrap this up and close it up till next time?
No, these are just the main, just to recap, these are the main bare bones of the setup. Okay. I'm really, really excited to kind of have that workshop with all of us that we can do where it talks about how to create the infographics and what's the right information to use. And then the last piece of this is going to be the psychology and really diving deeper into the conversations, the buzzwords, the phrases that you need to get rid of, to build rapport instantly. And that's a combination of theater, timeshare sales techniques, neurolinguistic programming, and disc profiling.
Perfect. I can't wait.
So that's coming. I think let's do the psychology next week, and let's leave the bonus and the infographics for the last piece, because then we can also invite everybody to come in and start asking questions and make that the other part, because the infographics doesn't have to be the whole session, but it would give people some time to catch up on everything we talked about and then come back to that last section and let's answer some questions of how do you set this up? How much does all this cost? That's a big question I get asked all the time too. And the answer is
not much.
Not a lot.
Okay, great. Collaboration. And then the other thing is, I really see part 4 being the psychology and letting you just deliver all your nuggets. And I see the bonus infographics, and yet I see a role play session, like a mastermind where they can actually role play. So role playing,
I love that.
Right? The listing, like I can see this goes on for 8 weeks because it's just so important. I can see the role playing, the calling for that borrowed agent's listing. Because if you can't get past that, hello, you're done. You can't go on to all of this, right?
Unless you have your own listings.
Well, that's a for sure. Yeah. So it's the one on that. And then it's also the role playing on the entry, like all of these aspects of what you're going to take us through, and the infographic bonuses later. But I see the mastermind after the whole series is delivered. Let's do it. I'm totally game. I'll actually take notes and write that down in that flow, and we'll be ready to go. But if you guys have this piece, you have the signs, and then you know how to pick the right house, and we touched on that conversation today. I mean, you're armed and dangerous at that point. You're already doing more than 75% of the other agents out there. Yeah. Already. Yeah. So keep going. I'm so excited to share this with everybody, and ask me any questions. Let's go. Wonderful. Well, anybody have any questions right now, or a couple of takeaways? What was the biggest aha that you got today?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Max, you're in Orlando, correct?
I am.
So in a couple of weeks, I will have the time. Will you be able to send me where your open house is and I will
Absolutely.
drive up to it?
Absolutely. Where are you?
I'm in Palm Bay.
You're in Palm Bay. You're not far at all. Oh my God,
I
that's
know.
perfect. You're an hour
Great.
away. Absolutely. I'm actually doing one this weekend if you want. Perfect. And that's actually fine.
After
I'm
that.
only doing it the first day, and then I've got some flex partners that are coming in and doing it the second day, because I'll be flying to Vegas.
Oh, good for you.
Oh, yeah. But absolutely, 100%.
Great
And
idea, Sandy.
we'll figure out, I've also done master classes, in-person master classes on this. So I'll make sure we fire some of those up as well. And it's basically, Sandy, year one, I was a capping agent just on this. I knew when I moved to Orlando, I knew 2 people. And I was a
Yeah, no,
capping agent on
this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant.
So
Wonderful.
awesome. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
guys. Any other
Okay,
questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, we'll see you. We'll wrap it up now. Thank you, Max.
All right. See you soon. Bye, guys.